US President Donald Trump says it's a victory for him. Well, what else can the man in the White House say? Politically, he cannot or won't admit that he has fought a war without a strategy or a clear end game. Iran may have lost the aerial battle, but a waterway has become Iran's ticket to survival on the ground. And Pakistan, like it or not, has found for itself a corner in a room full of much bigger players.
Views expressed in this blog are hosted on my own website, are strictly personal, and do not reflect the views of any.
Namaskar, hello and welcome friends once again to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. A ceasefire, a fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran is in place, or so we hope. We don't know yet for how long it will last, but at least the hope is that for the next fortnight, the missiles will have slowed, the markets will calm, and yes, maybe we can finally look at news beyond the bombs. But let's not be fooled, my friends. This is not peace as we understood it. It is perhaps a pause that is a good time to ask the key question. After 5 weeks of the bombing and the missiles, who has actually won or is winning this war without a clear end game? And who is losing out or has lost? That's what we're going to talk about on the Straight Bat. Let's start with the United States of America. US President Donald Trump says it's a victory for him. Well, what else can the man in the White House say? Politically, he cannot or won't admit that he has fought a war without a strategy or a clear end game. Personally, given his elephantine-sized ego, he can't even concede that he didn't quite achieve what he ostensibly set out to do: obliterate Iran, and even maddeningly threatened to send it back to the Stone Age. Remember, the president had said the civilization won't exist. Well, for Donald Trump, this has been a reality check. Iran is and never was quite going to be Venezuela. The ceasefire was needed because the longer the war continued, the more Donald Trump was being exposed as a ranting, unpredictable leader whose moves seemed to be made at times with one eye on the markets and certainly not on any clear strategy. His ratings were slipping at home, a disaster ahead of crucial midterm elections in November in America. Donald Trump, my friends, needed a way out of the war that, to be honest, he need not have begun in the first place. Now, Trump and the world get a breather. No war, oil prices stabilized, markets steadied, some relief, as I said, from the daily war games. But here's the problem for the White House now. After 5 weeks of war, what exactly has changed on the ground? Iran's regime is still in place. Its nuclear program is still unresolved. US forces are still in the region. So yes, you could argue that the US has controlled the crisis with this patchwork ceasefire in place, but it hasn't crucially closed it. They've managed the fire, but that is not the same as putting it out. So the verdict on the US? Well, America has to some extent achieved its short-term military objectives. To a substantial extent, it has managed to degrade Iran's infrastructure. But long-term limits of power have also been exposed. The lesson for Donald Trump and his supporters is simply this: you cannot bomb a country into a regime change. You can't defeat a civilization overnight as if it's some elimination contest on a Big Boss show. Sorry, Donald, you didn't get that quite right. But let's look at Iran now. Iran also hasn't won this war in the traditional sense. Its supreme leader and several top functionaries of the Islamic regime have been assassinated. Its infrastructure has taken a sizable hit. But crucially, Iran hasn't lost either. And in geopolitics, that matters. Iran has absorbed the pressure. It has stayed defiant. It forced a ceasefire. Iran hasn't backed down yet on sanctions. It hasn't even backed down crucially on nuclear enrichment. Instead, it's played a familiar game. Tehran has taken the hit, waited out the pressure, and most crucially, used a waterway through which a large part of the world's oil movement takes place to virtually hold the global economy to ransom. Indeed, if there is one big lesson, my friends, from this war, it is this: the Strait of Hormuz has been weaponized. Iran may never get a nuclear weapon, but it has found a deadly leverage. A tiny stretch of water has become part of daily conversations across the world. Iran may have lost the aerial battle, but a waterway has become Iran's ticket to survival on the ground. And yes, there is a heavy cost that Iran has paid for its attempt to become this permanent adversary of the US-Israel alliance. The Iranian economy is hurting. Its infrastructure, as I keep repeating, has taken a substantial knock. Its civilian population has faced death and destruction. So no, this isn't a clean win, as Tehran and anti-American voices may like to call it. It is at best, from an Iranian perspective, an honorable draw. But in an asymmetrical war, that almost constitutes for some a victory too. Because if your opponent cannot defeat you despite its vastly superior military might, then guess what? You're still in the game. Iran has survived, at least for now, and that for the regime will be seen as somewhat of a victory. Let's turn to Israel. Israel agreed to the ceasefire, but by all accounts reluctantly. For Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the core issue remains. Iran's attack capabilities are still, one could argue, mostly intact. As is Iran's hold over the proxies, the Houthis, the Hezbollah. Yes, there may have been tactical gains for Israel. Yes, Israel has inflicted substantial damage on Iran. But strategically, not much has changed. And that leaves, my friends, Israel in a familiar bind. Can it delay the threat, or has it been able to eliminate it? And if so, how does it do so? Right now, this ceasefire has offered breathing space, delay, not a resolution. And delay is equal to time being borrowed. So honestly, Benjamin Netanyahu, already under pressure from his political rivals at home, cannot wait endlessly to fulfill his life mission of dismantling the Iranian regime. You could argue then that while Israel has made its point, it hasn't quite been able to achieve its ultimate goal. Let's now turn to the twist in the story. Pakistan. Pakistan has quietly played a back-channel role, by all accounts, with support from Beijing. Not necessarily headline grabbing, but not insignificant. Facilitating talks between countries, keeping communication alive. All of this has given Pakistan something it hadn't got in a very long while: relevance, visibility, and yes, access. And all of this, my friends, remember, less than a year after Islamabad committed a heinous cross-border attack in Pahalgam, that led to Operation Sindoor. At the same time, let's not overstate Pakistan's role either. Pakistan hasn't or didn't decide the outcome of this ceasefire. It has only helped enable it. And the role of a facilitator is only as strong as the fragile ceasefire itself. If the ceasefire lasts, Pakistan can legitimately claim some credit. If it doesn't, we're back to square one. Meanwhile, and I want to be honest here, we in India can outrage and call Pakistan a dalal country, as our External Affairs Minister reportedly did in an all-party meeting. But here is the harsh truth once again that we need to deal with objectively. In diplomacy, being in the room on that high table matters, even if you don't own the room or even if you are at the corner of that high table. And Pakistan, like it or not, has found for itself a corner in a room full of much bigger players. So to that extent, Pakistan, you could argue, has benefited in a strange way from the war in West Asia. And finally, let's turn to us here in India. How have we handled this war? India has wisely, in my view, stayed out of the spotlight. We've been quiet, careful, calculated. You could argue that maybe we've been a tad too silent and far too circumspect for a country which claims, self-proclaims Vishwa Guru pretensions. In a sense, therefore, the war should be a wake-up call for those who have exaggerated at times our global reach. We may engage in this self-praise constantly, but the world, my friends, is far too fractured and destabilized for any country to call the shots. And India's limits, or the limits of India's influence in the world, has to that extent been brought home. But here is the good news for us as the ceasefire, or if the ceasefire holds. Oil prices will cool, market pressure will ease, and we can hopefully get back to what our focus should be: domestic growth. That, my friends, would be a real tangible gain. Along with, of course, ensuring that we are able to spread our risk better next time when it comes to oil supplies. Strategically too, you could argue that India has balanced its positions without really antagonizing anyone. Our ties with the US are intact. Our engagement with West Asia is more or less intact. And after initially seeming to antagonize the Iranians by embracing Israel just on the eve of war, we seem to have repaired that relationship to some extent. And yes, the fact is that our numerous Indians who live in West Asia are safe and secure. But, as I said at the very outset, India isn't shaping or hasn't shaped this West Asia story. We are merely responding to it. We are neither mediators or deciders. We are hopefully benefiting from a more complex world order by engaging in more and more bilateral engagements, but we are not influencing this global order as some kind of a leader of the global south. For that, we would have to start taking more moral positions openly. To answer then the big picture question once again, who's won so far in this West Asia conflict? You want an honest answer? No one. Yes, N-O, no one. No one has completely won or comprehensively lost. The US avoided escalation but couldn't settle the core issue, or hasn't been able to yet settle the core issue of a potentially nuclearized Iran. Iran has held its ground but at great cost to its people and leadership. Israel has gained from US support but hardly enough to end its own security challenges on its borders. Pakistan has gained visibility, but little else just yet. India certainly gains from a more stable Gulf region, but we stay on the margins of any conflict resolution. More worryingly, my friends, the fundamentals are still unresolved. Nuclear tensions, sanctions, regional rivalries, an oil-rich Gulf divided from within and increasingly unstable, which also means this ceasefire isn't an ending. In filmy terms, it's an interval or intermission. Maybe in today's more chaotic, multipolar, Trumpian world, wars don't or won't end cleanly. They will pause, they reset, and dare I say, they could return. And the real battle now isn't fought on the battlefield. It's over who gets to win the perception war. Because the truth is, my friends, that this has been and was a war that was eminently avoidable. One where everyone claims to win, and yet no one in their heart is really able to convince you of their victory. As a postscript, let me say this. The usual right-wing self-styled Deshbhaks are incensed that a few journalists like me have interviewed journalists from Pakistan and have noted Pakistan's role in the ceasefire. It is almost as if by mentioning or referring to Pakistan, we are putting down India. Bull crap, I say. Bull crap. If we are truly a self-confident nation, then we should stop measuring our foreign policy by what Pakistan does or does not do. True Deshbhakti lies in staying strong and independent, taking positions without looking over your shoulder at what the neighbor is seeking to take credit for. Think about it. That was the Straight Bat. Do, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more such videos. For now, stay well, stay safe. Jai Hind. Namaskar.